And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting on the Worldwide Coalition Network here at the Go Local Live Broadcast Center, deep in the heart of the city we love, Providence, Rhode Island, the naked city, the city of, well, about 360,000 stories. We're going to tell a couple tonight. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the mighty, mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, and the mothership, CoalitionRadio.us, where you can find links to our podcast page, our YouTube page, and of course, our Civil Liberties news page, where we'll disseminate press releases and information from a variety of good government groups, libertarian, liberty-leaning organizations across the state and across the country. As I mentioned before, one of the cool things about having your own show is you get to hang out with the people, and you have an excuse to call the people that you've really wanted to meet for a long time, and you get to know them. And this is certainly the case tonight. And while I've met our guest, I should say, Mark Garrofallo, on a number of occasions, to have him here in his professional capacity is a real thrill. You'll notice it's a little bit of a different aspect tonight. Normally we're leading right into hard politics, but it is the beginning of the holiday season, and if you're walking around Providence tonight, you're feeling the crisp fall air for the first time. The storms of the last couple of days, All Hallows Eve all together, I think have really put people into a holiday spirit. If, in fact, it's just, for example, a little bit of escapism from the sheer madness that, quite frankly, surrounds us. I don't know if I've had a year where people are more eager to dive into the holidays than I've had this year. But let's get right to our guest. Mark Garrofallo is the proprietary of Fireworks Catering. He has been a fixture in this town for a few years, does tremendous work on a private basis. We're going to talk about his easy catering approach, and we're also going to talk about, of course, holiday dining, because this year, I think more so than ever, people are looking to take that Instagram moment and convert it into real life on their home. Mark, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, Pat, good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So you're a Rhode Island story in a real sense. How did you come to be here? I know that you're a graduate of the Johnson Wales culinary program, a proud alum. Tell us the Mark Garrofallo story.
Yeah, well, so for some reason, I knew that I wanted to go to Johnson & Wales University. I went there for culinary. I graduated in '93, and it's funny, when I graduated, I said, you know what, I'm never coming back to Providence again, and this is a long time ago. And then I'll tell you what was great is that what actually brought me back to Rhode Island was a job, and the old Biltmore Hotel, which is now the Graduate, had a restaurant moving into it called Davios, which had a couple of locations in Boston, and I was aware of that. And I was looking for a new job, and so I came down to Providence. I applied and was eventually hired and worked there for almost 4 years. And yeah, I've been a Providence resident ever since. So now I'm going almost over 20 years.
So we're all familiar in a sense with Johnson & Wales. You know, we get it that it's culinary. We get that we're blessed because of the unique confluence of events of Providence. It's an artistic city. Two of the finest universities in the world in terms of liberal arts are right here. And then you've got arguably the finest worldwide culinary arts program based here in Rhode Island.
Sure.
What is it about Johnson & Wales, JWU, as the kids call it now, that is it the training? What's the atmosphere here like as a culinary student?
Well, I'll tell you, when I went to Johnson & Wales, the culinary scene was hugely different. There were I shouldn't say no. There were very few celebrity chefs. I mean, if you turned on TV, you were looking at Julia Childs. You were looking at the Galloping Gourmet. There was very few celebrity chefs. The
Galloping Gourmet. Wow.
Yeah, way back, absolutely, right. So, when I had just a very little bit of training before entering Johnson & Wales, and I'll tell you, you get out of it what you put into it, and I thought I got a phenomenal amount of training from there. I spent 2 years there. I had phenomenal chefs and teaching us, and that it really gave me the foundation, a great foundation, a great background. It really taught you techniques. It taught you how to cook. It wasn't so much about recipes; that was secondary. It was really about how to cook. And I tell my cooks now that cooking is all about the application of heat and the moderation thereof. And that's all it is. It's taking heat, transferring it to food, and figuring out how to get out of food what you want of it by doing that.
if there's been any benefit at all of these crazy reality restaurant rescue, bar rescue shows, number one, it shows the incredible amount of just physical hard work that's involved in working in the restaurant or being a caterer. I mean, it's just brutal. Number two, to your point, just how critical food science is. This isn't about you've got a great recipe at home and you can knock out for a bunch of friends. That's wonderful. But performing that on a large scale, continuously, with predictable results, to match the tastes and the ongoing development and tastes of your population here has got to be an incredible challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's funny, with catering, it's very different. I went from Johnson & Wales right into restaurants, and what I do now is catering, which is, it's still cooking, but it's a very different type of cooking. When you're at a restaurant, you have people coming in, you've got everything set up in front of you. It's a very controlled atmosphere, and it's very easy, and one that I adapted to very quickly, and was great. With catering, there are times where I have to be a little bit more of a I don't know, steer the clients someplace, because somebody may want to have their wedding out in a field where there's nothing. There's no water, there's no electricity, there's no gas, so we have to, you know, and they may want something, so I have to try to figure out how to best give them what they want within the confines of making it, first of all, possible, but also within the confines of their budget.
Right.
You know, and you talked about you talk about food science and that sort of thing. You know, I didn't do very well in chemistry or physics, but there is a lot. There is a lot of that that's going on in the food when you're cooking, as far as temperatures and things that you're doing with that. So,
well, and to that point, I mean, John Zavato, who's the proprietor of the world famous Yacht Club soda, Yacht Club Bottling Works, you know, he talks about pH counts in soda, and I really, and yet I would imagine the way that you apply heat to a variety of foods, and their mixture of such. And we talk about you know, I've watched enough of these shows where you talk about reductions and sauces and things like that. You know, it's a spectacular mix of chemistry.
Sure, and it's something as simple as, you talk about reductions, and I'm always telling my cooks, you know, that when you have a liquid, there's a finite amount of flavor in it, okay? And as you reduce the liquid, that flavor will intensify. The flavor, you know, water will evaporate, it will go away, but as that happens, the flavor intensifies. So, you know, and if you have to add water to it, you add stock to it, or whatever it is that you're doing, it dilutes that flavor. There's a finite amount of liquid, a finite amount of flavor, and it's about figuring out how to get the most amount of flavor out of what it is that you're cooking. Okay.
And so, for a young student attending culinary school, you know, I mean, you've got the various steps. I mean, is the first year, you know, they're traveling to Providence, and they're thrilled to be here. Visions of New York City restaurants dancing in their eyes, all right, or Boston. Yeah. And what's the reality of it? What does a student do that first 6 months or a year?
Sure.
Is it all food prep?
So yeah, well, you know, I mean, the reality is you know, you're not going on the Food Network.
Right.
All right. Sorry, it's not going to happen. And you know what? There are a few people that get to go work with the Gordon Ramsays of the world, the Thomas Kellers of the world, but the
or the Mark Garrofallos of the world.
Thank you very much. But the reality is, those spots are far and few between. But what Johnson & Wales does in the first year is they really lay a foundation, okay? And I think this is almost like a wake-up call to some kids when they go in, and that, again, like you're learning techniques and not recipes, okay? And they really are going to teach you how to fry, how to saute, how to braise, how to do all these very simple things that are not as, they seem simple to me because I've been doing it for so long, but they're not as simple as they're not as simple when you start off. I mean, there's this turkey that we have right here. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So we when we do, this is the same turkey, by the way, that you would serve at Thanksgiving, but we serve this in all of our sandwiches. All right, a lot goes into it before we serve it onto your sandwich, okay? You might go into the supermarket deli, and you get deli turkey, put it on your sandwich, and there you go, all right? For us, we actually get raw turkey breasts, all right, and we put it in a brine. A brine is a salt and sugar solution, okay? And there's a lot of science that goes along with that. Between the salt and the flavor that's going in and out of the cell walls, and then you cook it. It's almost impossible to overcook something once you've brined it properly. All right, so we've got, and then so we brine it for 24 hours, and then we roast it, and then we cool it, and we slice it, whatever. So there's a little bit more, it's not like we just take it, throw it in the oven, or take it, unwrap it, and slice it, throw it on your sandwich. All right, there's a little bit more to it than that.
There's a whole lot of technique and a whole lot of love.
Sure. Yeah.
Because each sandwich, and we'll get it a little later on. We'll get into the whole catering, this online catering business that you're part of, which is a phenomenal idea, and great. Apparently, by the reviews, great execution as well. But you're taking. We're in a fast food world right now.
Yes.
And we have certain elements of our society, and a lot of its time and money, have lost appreciation, if you will, for all of these intermediary steps. I mean, I talk. It was interesting because a very famous restaurant in New York, this city, this week made the news, international news, as you will. And talking about Peter Luger's, a steakhouse.
Yes.
And they got
skewered.
Oof.
Boy, did they get skewered! Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and they're a Michelin star, one Michelin star, and that's not easy to come by.
Right.
Just one.
Right. Particularly as a steakhouse, and they got destroyed.
Yes.
And so, I mean, it's been a long time since I've been at Peter Luger's, but the techniques like dry aging.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's an art form into itself. How does that work?
Sure. So there's a lot that goes into it. It is, you were mentioning pH balances earlier. There is a lot that goes into the processing of meat, whether it's wet aging, dry aging. You have to have the correct temperature. You have to have the right humidity level. Okay, because what you want to do is, I mean, you have a piece of raw meat, and of course it just sits out. It's going to attract bacteria. Okay, so what you want to do is you need to obviously prepare that in a way that there is no bacteria, or you need to prepare it in a way that you're not going to get sick from eating. Okay, so you need the right humidity, you need the right temperatures, you need the right pH balance. Okay, and the thing with the Peter Luger review that was interesting was that it had been I think it was since 2007 since they had been last reviewed from the New York Times, okay? And reading that review, I could see what the reviewer was saying. And by the way, the reviewer, Peter Wells, I know he goes to restaurants 3-4 times before making his review,
right.
Okay? And there is just something. Sometimes it's for the average diner, you may not realize what it is that makes something perfect or make something special, all right? But there is a lot of work that goes into that behind the scenes. And so when something comes out on a plate and it just looks great, it tastes great, and you may not understand everything that goes on behind it, but there was a lot of work that goes on behind it. So when Peter Wells was talking about some of the things that were not up to the standards, I could understand where in today's environment where there are increasing pressures for profit and for and that means the price of food's going way up, so maybe they were cutting corners. I have no idea, but it is a tough business to be in, and to put something out every single night perfectly all the time. It's not an easy thing.
Because the other word is consistency.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's it. I mean, if you've got the executive chef can't be there 24/7.
Right.
Okay, he can't be there on the line cooking everything. So you got to bring in great staff. You have to train them, and then you have to hope that your training will make its way through from you into your staff, and that they will hold the same standards, they'll hold the same beliefs as you, and hope that it follows through. So that you can actually take a day off or two.
Right, and so as someone who's an amateur, but as someone who obviously enjoys great cooking, you've got this curious mix on one hand of, let's reduce it to shop's engineering talk. You're taking various cuts of meat and fish and essentially altering their physical properties, as you pointed out, literally at the molecular level, using heat and or other techniques.
Sure.
You're pairing them with flavors and sauces that the imagination that comes out of that. And again, go back to my conversation with John at Yacht Club. Here's a gentleman who spends days and days and days trying to figure out the nuances of an individual soda. I can't even imagine what that's like on the food level. How do you come up with some of these crazy combinations?
Yeah, well, just through trial, error, and failure, and success. Okay, I always tell my cooks, you got to know the rules before you can break the rules. All right, and there's a lot going on in modern cuisine where they're using things like nitrous oxide to freeze things, and they're doing a lot of this molecular gastronomy and things, and that's great and that's wonderful. But you really need to know the rules. You need to know how to cook. All right, first, and then you can break the rules. There was a big trend. I would think maybe in the early '90s. It was called fusion cuisine.
Right.
And
particularly French, Vietnamese, things like that.
yeah, exactly. And you had to know why putting a piece of seared tuna on mushroom risotto either would or would not work. Okay, and so you had to understand what it is that you were doing with the tuna, what it is that you were doing with the risotto, because normally, tuna is not something that cooked raw is something that is seen in Italian style cooking. Risotto is a rice, but it's very different from Southeast Asian rice. So you're taking a couple of things, mixing it together, and you have to figure out why it works or why it doesn't work. And it's just through trial and error and learning. And I've had the privilege of working with some phenomenal chefs throughout the years, and that have given me kind of a little bit of free reign, and given me the ability to try things, and I don't like to say it, but I have failed in certain times with food. It's just sometimes it just doesn't work. But I'll tell you that the best thing though is that when you're cooking in a restaurant, and you might have a meal that you have cooked, I don't know, maybe literally 1,000 times, okay? And it's a busy Saturday night, and you've been there since 10 o'clock in the morning, and it might be 9 o'clock at night, and it's a rush Saturday night, and you've already cooked 300 meals or whatever. And it could be the most innocuous thing, the easiest thing you've ever cooked in your life, okay? But you know what? Sometimes you do it, you cook it, you plate it, you put it up, and it's like perfect. And that moment lasts maybe half a second, all right? But that can make your whole night. All right, when you've just done something and it looks absolutely perfect, and then of course you get back in the weeds and face your, turn around, you face your stove or your oven and fry it or whatever it is that you're doing, and you start over again, But so that's the reward of it, I mentioned a couple times that failed, but the reward is just knowing that you've done something to the perfection,
Right. Did you realize this as a young man that you like to cook, or?
People have asked me that in terms of when I realized that I wanted to be a chef, and to be honest, I honestly don't know. I guess I had an affinity for cooking. I took some home ec classes in high school, but it wasn't a voc tech class. It wasn't a voc tech high school, and I guess I just sort of enjoyed it. And I knew for some reason I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. I went to a Johnson Wales had a summer program. Okay, and between my sophomore and junior year, and so I went, and between my junior and senior year, and I went for a week, and we did some classes and whatever, and I really liked it, and I applied early, and I got in, and I'm very lucky that I knew when I attended that early class that week there in the summer, I really enjoyed it. Really knew this is what I wanted to do. And I'm very lucky because that was I'm good at it, And I found something that I was good at, and I found something that that I could excel at, So yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because you came out of school at an interesting time when Providence was really starting to move beyond. And I say this with love because red and white checkered tablecloth Italian food is some of the best in the world.
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
Is a perfect chicken parm is something to behold.
Yeah, absolutely. You go to Mike's, all right, in Cranston at the VFW, and there is nothing better than old world Italian. You go to the canteen up on the hill,
Right.
all right, and they're gonna do it, and that's actually where I got my start doing old fashioned Italian stuff, where you go in and the menu is it's chicken parm and chicken masala and chicken this, chicken that, and then veal. It's veal parm, veal masala. It's everything right down the side,
Right.
And that's really where I got my start working in that type of a restaurant, and there's something to it. I learned a lot about a lot about systems and the mechanics of actually putting together a successful restaurant.
Right. So when you went from JWU, where did you go to first? Was it Marzilli's, or where did you start?
Oh no, actually, well, like I had mentioned that. After I graduated from JWU, I said I'm never coming back to Providence again.
Okay.
I say that almost. I love the city now. I've been here for so long, but if you go down to where Water Place Park is, there were nothing but dirt mounds. There was no mall.
Right.
There was no mall. So I went back up. I'm originally from the Boston area, and so. After I left Johnson & Wales, I immediately went back to actually work at Nantucket for a second summer there. That was a phenomenal little vacation working experience. And then I worked in Boston, in the suburbs of Boston. Okay, and I did that for a couple of years. And like I said, when the restaurant called Davio's, which has a couple locations up in Boston, was opening up a new place down here in Providence, I said, this might be something I want to do. The standard of living, the cost of living, in Providence was more affordable.
Right.
It was, and I trusted the Davio's name. Okay,
Right.
and their professionalism and the quality of the food that I knew it was a known quantity, right? And so I came down, I applied, whatever, I got the job, and one month later, I was living up right behind an old Riccati's up on Federal Hill, and I've been, like I said, I've been in Providence ever since. I worked there for 4 or 5 years. I went down to Newport. I worked at White Horse Tavern, another phenomenal restaurant, and I came back to Providence and worked at Gatehouse Restaurant and catering, and that's kind of how I fell into a little bit of catering. It's funny. I went to a job interview for Gatehouse, and I thought it was for the restaurant. And I was told, well, actually, we're looking for a catering chef. I thought it was a sous chef position for a restaurant. And I said, well, it's something I've never done, but whatever, we'll try it out, whatever. I did the interview. I did the bench test there, and
Explain it. Okay, so
Yeah.
bench test. Explain that to folks.
yeah. So a bench test is also called a stage. All right,
Yeah.
and what that is pretty much you go in for a day, and you work. You work for a day, and you're able to see what the restaurant does or what the kitchen does. The kitchen is able to kind of see how you work, how you interact, and that's just part of the hiring process to see what your skill levels really are. You
Right.
put it on paper, but once you really see somebody who's how they work with a knife and how quickly they work, whether they're clean, whether they're a slob, that sort of thing. You get to learn a lot in just that few hours that you're doing that test with an interviewee.
Because I'm told, and again, I'm not an expert. I just try to play one on the radio.
Yeah.
The chemistry of a kitchen is perhaps as or more critical than the chemistry of a football team.
Yeah. Well, I've never played football, but I will tell you this, that there really is a chemistry to a team that works in a kitchen, okay? And when I like to use the example of when I was down at White Horse Tavern, okay? You're working in a spot that is pretty much the size of the little studio that we're working in here, okay? And you've got 4 guys, okay? And that's it. You're cooking for 250 people.
Right.
You've got a stove, an oven, some sauces, whatever, and you got to move. And it takes a little bit of while. It really is. People they talk about a dance, talk about a ballet. You really get to know each other's moves, and because the thing is, you can't always be talking. You have to. It's a lot of it is muscle memory, and a lot of it is just being able. You have to be able to anticipate what someone else is going to be able to do. You have to be able to, and then react to that. And once you experience it, it's hard to explain, but once you experience it, it really is something to behold.
Things.
really is.
Another analogy was a great pit crew.
I'm sorry?
A great pit crew.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's like a lot of cooks will say they'd go to war with the guys that they cook with. And the other thing too is there's a lot of camaraderie. I mean, the thing is that even if you don't like the guy working next to you, I mean, you may not like the guy who's right next to you, but you know what? Your job that night is to cook for 250 people, and you know what? You're in there together, and you got to do it, and so you do it.
What are the various stations? You talk about a sous chef. For a lot of folks, this is almost like this is great. And if you're just joining us, by the way, Mark Garrofallo, he is the proprietor, the head chef, the Grand Poobah, High Exalted Ruler, Chief Water Buffalo of Fireworks Catering here in town. If you've been to anything surrounding water fire, it does a tremendous amount of work for local charities, local organizations, real fixture on the scene. He's actually stepped out from behind, if you will, the kitchen for a moment and really kind of giving us a fine dining 101 here. This is wonderful. The different roles in the kitchen. People hear sous chef all the time. They hear pastry chef. What's the food chain really like?
Sure. So, I mean, the food chain can be different from restaurant to restaurant, all right? But pretty much you have an executive chef, you've got a sous chef, you may have an executive sous chef in between, and then you've got the brigade, okay? And then you've got the chef, the sous chef, and then you've got the cooks, all right? You've got the stewards behind that, and it really is a food chain. It goes up. I mean, it's very. People have called it militaristic, where you have the chef, sous chef. I mean, and it goes right up and down the chain.
Yeah, the executive chef is the ultimate authority, though, in the kitchen. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
In a tightly run kitchen, he or she is the ultimate authority figure for that,
Sure.
particularly when the doors open and the lights go on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, I try to be. I've told my cooks before. I say, look, here's the way it's going to be. All right, it's not my way or the highway. But here's the thing, it's going to be my way. And 90% of the time, I can take the time to explain to you why it is that I'm asking you to do what it is you want to do. But 10% of the time, you're just going to have to accept the fact that I'm going to say because so. And it may not be. If it's only 10% of the time, it's fine. You know what I mean? I'm not one of these guys who, Gordon Ramsay type who's throwing pots and pans around and that sort of thing. But at the same thing, you have to understand is that you're under a lot of pressure. You have a limited amount of people that to perform a task, and you have guests that are spending an exorbitant amount of money, and their expectations are so high, and you need what you need when you need it, and you're going to get it. And if you're not going to get it from the person, someone else is going to give it to you.
Right. The blessing of folks' enhanced sophistication in dining is that they're willing to spend more, invest more, travel more, be more adventurous, and yet at the same time they're demanding and their expectations are higher than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Folks are looking every night wherever they go to be blown away.
Yeah, absolutely. Just real quick to back up, it's pretty much do your job. And I mean, I certainly would not put myself in the realm of Bill Belichick, but you know what I mean. That's how he runs the Patriots, a football team. But that really is, you have a job to do. Do it quickly, do it thoroughly, and do it to the best of your ability. All right. But getting back to guest expectations, certainly, like I said, when I was graduating from Johnson & Wales, there really was not. It was just starting to change. People were just starting to see what I call California. California Italian. Okay.
Right.
There was Alice Waters, which was doing this local. Stuff out in California, out in San Francisco.
Right, in a little tiny restaurant, Chez Panisse.
Chez Panisse, and and here I guess the equivalent would be Al Forno. Okay, where they were in terms of doing things that were authentic and a little bit different. It wasn't your old French.
Chateaubriand.
Yeah, exactly. And that really, and so starting with that local stuff, that California. I mean, we really at that time also the importation of ingredients. The big thing back then was really what can you source from around the world? What is new? What can you bring in?
Right.
You know, and it's interesting to see now where since then now it's not what can you get from around the world, but what can you get from down the street?
Right.
What are your local purveyors doing? What is Yacht Club Soda doing? Okay, and you know, instead of Coca-Cola. All right. What does Yacht Club Soda bring to the table that Coca-Cola doesn't? And you know, they have a touch. They have so many flavors, and it's local. And so you know, it's great to see that. And I think that it's really been an interesting. It's been an interesting journey to see where it used to be what can you bring from around the world
Right.
to what can you bring from from right down the street.
Right. And if you look at the success of, say, the farmers market down in Blackstone Boulevard, you know, where it's a juried process to even participate.
Yes.
At this point, that's that's why our farmers markets are better than everybody else's farmers. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to compete to get in.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not. You know, there's no easy. Throw out some stuff, call it local farm to table, and fly with it. This crowd here in Providence. But what I mean, I'm interested in your perspective. I mean, I'm obviously a very political person, but I'm also a fan of neighborhoods, and I'm a fan of the organic process that takes place in a spot somewhere in a city, a suburb, wherever. That all of a sudden ingredients come together again organically. You can't introduce them by a government. You can't legislate them into place. Something happens and a switch goes off, and all of a sudden you've got a scene.
Yeah.
And that switch happened right around the time, you know, again, you came of age at a time when that switch went off.
Yeah, absolutely.
What in your mind was it that made Providence all of a sudden this hotbed for food?
Ooh, that's a great question. That really is a great question. I think that what was happening, I think that we were very heavily influenced by what was going on in New York and in San Francisco and Miami. Okay, we had the celebrity chef was just starting to come about. Okay, Emerald. Okay, I think what helped our local scene was Emerald's from Fall
River. Yeah.
Okay, and I think that also we have a rich tradition here in New England of seafood, of a local cuisine. There really is. We have such a bounty here. So I think that there was it was sort of what was happening in the country and what was available to us locally as well. And we sort of could kind of marriage it together. And again, it's not right. It's not something you can legislate. It's just something that happens. It has to happen organically. I mean, you get lightning in a bottle, okay, and government's not going to do that for you. Lightning in a bottle happens every once in a while, all right, and it happens organically, and it just has to be.
How important was it that Providence was such an affordable city at that time?
Oh, it was so important. I mean, like I said, I was working in Boston, and that really was, I mean, a hotbed. That was the food scene. I knew everything that was going on in Boston. Talking about way back. I mean, you talk about Lydia Shire, Gordon's Hammersley's, for people that people that know those names. I mean, they were like the grandmother and grandfather of Boston cuisine. Okay, but for me to be able to come to Providence and the rent was half the price.
Right.
I had a great apartment up on Federal Hill, and it was really, honestly, it really was. I could live in a city where it really was half to a third of the price of what it was living in Boston. And I could walk to downtown. There really was so much going on. And like I said, I had this known quantity of the restaurant, obviously, that I worked for. It was a known quantity, and it really had everything that I needed.
Right. And then so you add then in the mix, the unique chemistry of Risdi and Brown. And you add in this generational Italian and Portuguese cooking. Easy supply of some of the best seafood on the planet.
Sure.
And you've got magic.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I went, at the time that I moved down here, I think that was the beginning almost of the transformation a little bit of Federal Hill from old school to new school Italian. We had a restaurant right there at the beginning of Federal Hill, right underneath the pine cone, called Mediterraneo.
Yeah.
Okay? And their approach to food was very different from the old canteen, okay, or Indino's, or what, any of those restaurants. And it doesn't make it better. It doesn't. It just, but it was
Different.
much different, okay. You were doing a lot more quick pan sauces. It wasn't such a reliance on heavy sauces or butter sauces from that you prepared ahead of time. It was a lot more quick. There were a lot more, like I said, ingredients that are coming from California. Sun-dried tomato. You wouldn't know what a sun-dried. People didn't know what a sun-dried tomato was before 1990. Okay, goat cheese. Being able to get fresh goat cheese and those things like that.
I miss Providence cheese, by the way.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
That was, walking in and seeing mozzarella hanging. When you buy the mozzarella, it was still in the liquid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing. I could go to Antonelli's Poultry.
Right.
Okay, and I could get fresh chickens. I could get fresh rabbits. There was such a, there really was a confluence of fresh food, but also, like I said, it was the old style and new style, and you could kind of take it and kind of marry it. It was so it was really a great time for me to be here in Providence. I made it my home. And it gave me a great springboard. Like I said, I went down to Newport, worked at a White Horse Tavern down there, and which was interesting because that was kind of a throwback to old school French kind of cooking. We were doing beef Wellington,
right?
And I had been doing the whole progressive thing for a long time, and to be able to do some real old school French style food was really satisfying. And occasionally what we would do is with the specials and stuff that's where we were kind of marrying some of the old and the new. And it was a really, really great experience.
Do you have a couple of, for example, when we moved to Providence, pot au feu was really breaking onto the scene, and the notion that you could have upstairs a salon and downstairs a real old school bistro was astonishing.
Yeah.
It was a great combination. Do you have any restaurants that have gone before? So we won't insult anybody who's here. But let's just leave it to restaurants that have left us, if you will. Is there any one particular one that you miss?
Wow. Aqua Viva up on the hill was Walter's. The restaurant that I worked at, Davio's. You could get veal chops, and and that was such a great restaurant. Gatehouse also that I worked at. What's funny? It's a great question. I'd have to put a little bit more thought into it.
It becomes such a blur. We're so I hearken back to years ago. I spent some time over the space of a year or so in Richmond, Virginia. And this is to show you how we're spoiled. Now, first of all, there's some phenomenal food in Richmond, Virginia. The barbecue is astonishing. They have something called this baked pasta that they make. But there's a Richmond magazine, much like there's a Rhode Island Monthly. And, they have the list of the top restaurants. And I'm looking through it. I'm sitting in the hotel, and I want to see what's the best Italian restaurant. And let's just say the OG.
Okay.
Was by people nominated the best Italian restaurant in Richmond, Virginia, which was ridiculous because there are some great local Italian restaurants, but in most of the country, I call it drive-through, not drive-by, drive-through territory. You drive through down a highway, and the same 4 big box stores are there, and you drive another 4 miles to the next exit. We, as challenging as Providence and as challenging as Rhode Island can be politically and financially, it's a spectacular place to live.
Well, sure. And what's great also is that when a restaurant leaves, a new one comes in. You're talking about restaurants that from way past. There's Amsterdam's, which is now Parkside.
Right.
Amsterdam's a great restaurant, and now there's Parkside. There was a place called Angels. Okay, that's going way, way back. And that the gentleman that owned that is now, he's got. I was going to say XO Cafe, but that also recently closed. Okay,
Right.
But you've got Prime Steak and Sushi. So even though a restaurant will close, something new is going to pop in right there with it.
Right.
So you don't have a long. What's great about this scene is that you may miss what was there, but something's going to pop right up in it, and you're gonna enjoy it as well.
Now, it's interesting too because on the business sense, you now have restaurant groups in the state, which I think is critical because those economies of scale allows them, quite frankly, to stay competitive, stay somewhat reasonably priced. I'm old enough to remember when things broke in 1995, an entree, there was, shuddering. Now, quite frankly, and maybe you could speak to this for a moment, because so many places you go now, an entree is in the $30 to $40 range. And I think people look to that and they don't really understand why it's $30 to $40 for an entree. What are some of the conditions that have created this sort of restaurant inflation?
Yeah.
Because I know you guys are doing very well, but it's not like a lot of people are getting really rich at $30 to $40.
No,
It's a challenge.
Yeah, it is a challenge. And it's funny. So when I left Davio's, the most expensive item on that menu was veal chop. All right, $26. And I went down to Newport and worked at a White Horse Tavern. The least expensive item was chicken breast at $26. Okay, so there are some differences in terms of level of service and that sort of thing. However, the labor costs, the cost of food, the cost of everything has really, really gone up for everything, whether it's food, whether it's packaging, and one of the biggest problems, I shouldn't say problems, one of the biggest challenges that we have here in the city also is there's a lot of the price that you don't see, and that's, could be rent. Okay, and to have a spot downtown, you're talking an incredible amount of rent because you're paying not just the rent, but then there's the taxes that go along with that stuff.
Right.
So there's a lot. So where a spot here in the city, you may have to charge $3, $4, $5 more dollars a piece than something maybe in a suburb that has a lower tax base, because you really are paying for the real estate.
Yep.
You're paying for it. You're paying for the real estate and the ability to be in that spot in the city.
Right. And to a certain degree, I've got to believe, because I'm not going to put these restaurants on the spot and say why, but there you have this advent of the last 4 or 5 years of these very small spots, which, and the other night my wife and I saw something at the PPAC, and we had a cocktail at the Eddy. And if you're looking for something innovative and amazing in this city, go to the Eddy for drinks.
Sure.
I mean, I foolishly enough, I asked for the ingredients of one of their cocktails, and the people there were very nice, and they came back with this list. And again, talking about reductions, the syrup that they custom make for this apple, which is not an appletini, it's not anything grotesque, it's not an apple juice, but it was one of the most subtle cocktails I've had in my life. It was phenomenal. Just the ingredient list for the reduction that created the syrup for the drink was about a dozen ingredients.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, a lot of the restaurants here also, when they're using local ingredients, people think, oh, it's local, they don't have to ship it that far, it should be a lot cheaper, right? That's not true. I mean, you're talking about there are things in terms of economy of scale, all right? So when you have a national supplier that's bringing you vegetables or meat or whatever, they have that economy of scale. But when you're dealing with local ingredients, you're dealing with something a little bit smaller. You're dealing with it's a smaller. It's a smaller entity, all right?
Small,
taking more, so they don't.
You're not going to go to
Cisco.
You're not going to go to Cisco for some of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Not impugning Cisco, but you're not going to find off-the-shelf reductions for cocktails custom made.
Exactly. And there is artistry there is a little bit of artistry that goes along with what we do. Sometimes even I'll go someplace and I'll see something on the menu. I've been cooking forever, all right? And sometimes I'll see something on the menu that I don't know, all right? Which is hard to believe. But so people have tastes change, trends change, and there may be something that is new to a young cook, all right? And he wants to impress you, so he'll put a fancy word on the menu, all right? Something like that. So I won't know what it is. So people always they're always pushing to do something new, to do something innovative, okay? And because there is an artistry, there is a little bit more to it than just putting pasta and sauce on a plate. Yeah. So there's a little bit more in terms of knowledge and stuff behind it.
So let's talk about your catering business first. And again, we've got plenty of time, so I also want to talk about your online catering business. So you've got two very distinct businesses, as it strikes me anyway, within under one umbrella.
Yeah.
You have one of the top catering fine event gala style organizations in the state.
Yep.
And yet at the same time, you've got a separate business which really caters to the corporate traffic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your fine catering. Picking out a catering for a wedding or a graduation party is it just seems overwhelming at times.
Sure.
So first of all, how long has Fireworks been open?
14 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That type of stability and a challenging business.
Yeah. It has ups and downs and whatever, but we're going strong. We're still happy to be where we are. But so when I think you were about to ask something, but when we get a phone call, when someone who wants to have a wedding, okay, there is a lot more that goes into an off-site catered event, and that's it. We prepare all of our food at our commissary, okay, and then
Which is in Providence.
which is in Providence, and
You're a
then
city kid.
we will go wherever and build a kitchen if we have to, and serve you and your guests what you need. So sometimes it's not as easy as going to a restaurant, sitting down in a seat, and ordering off of a menu. All right, because something that you can order off of a menu in one spot, if you're going to have a small gathering for 10, 12, a private dinner for 10 or 12 people at your home, and they'll give me access to their kitchen, that's great, that's easy, But to replicate that for 200 people at a spot where maybe, like I said, there's no kitchen, there is no running water, there is no electricity, there's a lot more that goes into that.
Right, and it would appear, and you can tell me better, that the trend now is to have a destination wedding. I don't mean the overseas style, but I mean at a place that is not equipped for that. An art gallery, a church, an historic building, any type of venue, the Providence Library, the Providence Athenaeum.
Absolutely.
I mean, wonderful places to have events, amazing surroundings.
Yep.
But you talk about logistics. I've just seen from afar what happens when you talk about building a kitchen. First of all, you still have to conform to ServSafe regulations. I mean, and again, harkening back to the reality TV, we all now understand, if you watch enough reality restaurant TV, how critical maintaining proper temperature, as something as seemingly as basic as that, is a challenge when, let's just say you're setting up a spread over at the Providence Library. What do you do?
Sure. So again, you have first you got to know all the rules, all right? And it's not, believe it or not, it's not as simple as temperature. It's temperature, it's pH, it's water level, it's with salinity, all of those things in between, and the amount of time that it's at a certain temperature. Okay. So what we do is when we're dealing with a client is we'll say we'll try to figure out where the event is and what we have available to us, okay? And then we try to conform the menu to them. So, there are certain instances in which we may prepare the food 100% at our commissary, pack it up, bring it up to temperature, cook it, put it in warming boxes, bring it to the event, serve it, and then be done with it. And then there are other times where it's something that needs to be cooked on site. Okay, so then like I said, you're building the kitchen. Okay, so now you're preparing food back at the commissary, making sure. Then you put it on ice. You're making sure it's the right temperature. You're then bringing it to that space. Okay, building your kitchen and then cooking it and serving it while you're there. All right. It sounds very simple.
No, it doesn't.
But it really it's not as there are certain things that take something simple as like a shrimp scampi. Okay.
Right.
Very simple. All right. Shrimp and garlic, lemon juice and butter and pasta. Okay. But I will not do a shrimp scampi for a corporate party in which we cook it at the commissary and then bring it there, because as it sits in that warming box, okay, the shrimp is gonna get tough. A lot of times we get a lot of corporate clients that want a cookout, okay, but they don't want to. They may not have the budget for to bring a chef out to cook hamburgers, hot dogs, whatever, service staff on site. So what do? We say, well, okay, we're not going to cook hamburgers at the commissary. Put them in the pan, put them in the warmer, and bring it out to you, okay? So we we explain to them that we have things that may be better suited for travel. So instead of doing a cookout, maybe we do a barbecue, where we're doing things like pulled pork or pulled chicken, all right, or brisket. Foods that are made, you get back into the chemistry and the physics, foods that are made to be held at a certain temperature for a long time without degradation of quality.
Right.
All right, and that's figuring out how to get the best for your client. And sometimes you have a client that just thinks they know, and
Well, that's, I mean, I'm not going to ask you, obviously, to get into the Bridezilla stories,
No.
but I'm sure that people's expectations versus budget has got, because in addition to being a chef, you also have to be a consultant,
Yes.
and you have to be a salesperson.
Sure, absolutely.
And understanding and qualifying the customer gently without, so as they don't have a heart attack sometimes, but with their incredible grandiose, because again, the flip side of all this reality TV and this, the birthday parties at 16 and the quinceañeras and all this stuff is that, again, I
Sure. Well, sometimes I will point blank ask the client, what is your budget? And, you go to a lot of like wedding planning sites and they give the brides tips on how to negotiate, okay? And the thing is that, sometimes I'm just asking, I'm asking the price because I really want to know what your price, so I really can help you,
Right.
tell you what we can do for that price.
essentially
for,
back into it.
Exactly,
Right.
because it's and we can, there are so many different facets, and one of the things that we do at Fireworks is we will, when we do your invoicing, we will give you the price for food, price for rentals, price for staffing, and we break everything down so you can see what it is you're spending your money on,
Right.
okay? And if you, sometimes we get people say, oh geez, that's not as expensive as I thought. They add money and they can, you can put more money towards the food, okay? Or we say, we can do that champagne toast, okay, well that's gonna add 2 service staff. Well, they can see right there, they can see right there what it is that it's gonna cost them to do that,
Right.
And that's really, we really try to push a service with people. I'm really not trying to sell. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've actually told a client, you know what, I'm not going to get rich because I'm going to tell you the truth. And, and I really, I always tell people too, I never want people to go into debt, for their wedding. It's just not,
Right.
it's not practical. It doesn't make any sense, okay? And maybe that's not the best thing for business, but you know what, it's the way I feel. It's the way that I run my business, and it makes me feel better about it, rather than trying to, get as much as you possibly can. Because you hear things where people say, oh, it's a wedding, it automatically goes up 20%. You know what I mean? And yeah, sure, that's true for some people. And part of that also is that if you call me up and you want to have lunch for 10 people, okay, it's going to take maybe 10 minutes on the phone. Okay, you want this, you want that, you want this, boom, boom, no problem. All right, but there's a lot of planning that goes on for a wedding, especially when the expectations are so high. And so there's a lot more time that goes into it. I mean, so you're talking about having an event coordinator, a front of the house manager that's working with you one-on-one, and they could spend 40 to 50 hours
Right.
just before your event, planning everything, and and so there is that time that almost it's kind of invisible, It's kind of like the chicken is the chicken, the price of the chicken is the chicken, but in order to figure out how we're going to get the chicken, to where it needs to be, and to make sure that you have the tables and you have the chairs and you have everything else that you want it to be where it is to be, there's sort of invisible costing to go with that. So it's a little bit of a challenge sometimes to work with clients and to kind of convince them and kind of nudge them towards the understanding that we're really trying to figure out how best to work with them and what they want and get them the best. And of course there are sometimes we just can't, we just sometimes can't work with some people, their budgets are just not, and I'm upfront with that. I tell them, hey, I'm sorry, it's not, and I'll give them recommendations to go somewhere else, whatever, and I'm happy with that, it's.
And part of the issue, of course, is the venues that will allow independent caterers to come in. Is that, I imagine that's a major consideration.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talked about the Providence Library, all right? So they have a specific caterer that they deal with, and for us to be able to go in and work with it, it's not going to happen. Okay, people have certain deals with. They have arrangements with certain venues and that sort of thing.
Right.
And that's how it works. I mean, we can't get into some of the Newport mansions because there are companies that have been there for years. So I mean, but it's like any other company. It's like you're like any other business. You're when you're we've been around for 14 years, but I mean, we go up against some of the other guys that have been around for 30, 40, 50 years. So we're still kind of the new guy. So we actually look for some of these non-traditional venues, and it may be a little bit more work, but you know what? That's our niche. That's how we get in. That's how we do what we do. And you know, people don't want to be. We can give you the same, almost, we can give you the experience, but not not in a mansion. All right, we're gonna
Right.
So that sort of thing.
So we're coming into the holidays. Let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk the holidays.
Yeah.
First of all, from a catering perspective, this is a very popular time of the year for people to get married.
Yeah.
In around the holidays, and in effect, the increasing price of travel and just life in general has led people to, I think, look for alternative nights, but also look for times when people are going to be coming together anyway.
Yeah.
So are the menus that you work with, are they seasonally affected, and in a sense by availability of the components?
That's a great question. Because you referenced a little bit about having people getting together and doing weddings versus traditional holiday
Right.
catering. So you're always going to be constrained by what the client's expectations are, and then your ability to match that, or to give the client what it is that they want. Okay, so there are certain things you're just not going to be able to get in the wintertime. If you're talking about a farm to table experience in November, December, or you're not going to
Root vegetables.
you're going to get lots of root vegetables. You're not going to get strawberries. Okay, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to get fresh ramps or leeks, things of that nature. So sure, I can source it. Well, I can source it from somewhere else, and that's part of the whole give and take, and figure out what they want, whether they want local, whether they like organic, whether they don't care, and they just want it. That's just what they want.
Right.
So for the holidays, one of the things I learned really quick, especially with Thanksgiving, don't mess with Thanksgiving. All right? Do not mess with Thanksgiving. People will tell you they want something different. People will tell you they want something exotic or whatever, but no, they don't. All right? So, and let me give you a personal anecdote. The first Thanksgiving that I cooked with after I got married with my in-laws, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this great thing. I'm going to take the turkey and I'm going to brine it, but I'm going to take the legs, right? And I'm going to take the legs off the bone, and I'm going to grind it up. I'm going to make turkey sausage, and I'm going to take that sausage and make traditional sausage stuffing.
Wow. Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. And it was a lot of work. Okay. Well, it turns out that my father-in-law loves dark meat. That's all he eats. And there he is with a bird.
He's the one.
Well, and so there we are with a turkey with a breast and...
Have some sausage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, don't mess with Thanksgiving, okay? I do, when I cook, by the way, I cook, that's one of the few times at home that I actually do cook is Thanksgiving, okay? And it is...
But that belies the whole point. I mean, if you marry a chef, you're expecting catered dinners every night.
Well, and all right, so yes, you're exactly right. And my wife will tell you every single time it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't cook at home. Very rarely do I cook at home. I mean, I do it all day long. I do it nights. I do it weekends. I do it holidays. Very rarely do I cook at home. But Thanksgiving is one of those meals actually where I take it upon myself. I don't work Thanksgiving. We have sometimes had clients that want us to cook Thanksgiving dinner for them, and I have cooks that want to work it, or servers that want to work it, and that's fine. But I personally don't. All right, so it's one holiday that I do not. I work Christmas, I'll work New Year's, but Thanksgiving I don't. So I cook at home on for Thanksgiving. All right, and again, don't mess with it, man. Do not mess with it. Now, it took a couple of years. There is one thing that I do, and it's sort of the mother of invention. Because my home, it's a very small kitchen, very small oven, okay? And I didn't have room to really cook everything for everybody. And so one of the things that I did was I kind of took away the tradition of serving the whole bird on the table.
Right.
Because I just didn't have the room to to cook it. So we broke I broke the turkey down. I took off the breast, took out the legs. But it took a couple of years for everyone to get used to it. But they realized that this is it's actually a much better way of preparing it. So,
Right.
And actually, it's funny. A really funny thing too is one of the first years that I cooked for everybody. I had told everybody that dinner at 1 o'clock. That's what we have. We're having turkey dinner at 1 o'clock, and of course 1 o'clock. I'm a chef. 1 o'clock. Dinner's on the table, and I had a couple of people say, "Wow, when you mean 1 o'clock, you mean 1 o'clock?" Yeah, well, yeah, dinner's at 1 o'clock. This is not. This isn't. This is not the DMV. It's not whatever. 1 o'clock is 1 o'clock. But so getting back to the holidays, so. Thanksgiving we stick traditional, okay? And what we're doing this year, something we've done the past couple of years, is we are offering guests a traditional Thanksgiving meal, all right, that we will prepare ahead of time for them, okay? That they can pick up a couple of days before Thanksgiving. We'll have complete reheating instructions for them, and they can cook. They can reheat everything and have a great Thanksgiving meal with a tenth of the work. Okay,
Right.
And we offer it's a traditional, like I said, it has turkey, vegetables, cranberry sauce, applesauce, rolls, sweet potatoes, mashed potatoes. Completely the works. All right, and we offer that for guests. And like I said, we the only thing that we've cooked everything ahead of time except for the turkey, but we do brine that. All right, so we put that in we brine that for 24 hours. We give them the pan to put it in. We give them exact way to cook it, the exact time and the temperature, whatever. So you really can't go wrong with it. And people will pick that up 1 or 2 days before Thanksgiving. And what it is it allows someone at home who just may not. It's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work, and maybe they don't want to do the work, so they come, they get the food, they bring it home, they heat everything up, and put it on their table, and it's great. We've had a couple of people say they don't tell their family that they think it's funny they think that they've cooked.
Did you take a class this year?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing, I'm just going to take a shot at this, that your cranberry sauce does not conform to the shape of a can.
Yeah, no. Actually,
No little ridges and no?
No, none at all. And it's funny, there is one thing I don't do on Thanksgiving at home that I don't touch. And that is my wife loves cranberry sauce from a can. Okay? Great, good for her. I don't touch it. That is, aside from, and she takes care of the house and she does it.
But it slices so nicely.
Yes, absolutely. But I won't touch it. That's what I let her do, and that's her thing. But yeah, no. Fresh cranberries. We cook them down. We add the sugar, a little vinegar. We add orange, whatever, a little cinnamon, that sort of thing. Yeah, and that's how I do my cranberry sauce.
Okay.
So yeah.
So what do we have here? This is
Great.
Emblematic of some of the things you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a boneless turkey breast, all right? And like I said, we brine it, okay? And so when brine is very simple. It's a salt sugar solution, okay? But what we also add to that, we add lemon, cinnamon stick, garlic, bay leaves, cracked peppercorn, coriander, and a whole bunch of other spices and herbs, okay?
Can I try?
Onions. Yeah, absolutely, yes. All right. So, and again, what happens when you brine something, what it is, it's very, there is there's a process that happens where the water, the brine solution enters the cell walls of the turkey, comes out, and it equalizes the amount of salt. People think, oh, salt, well, there's a lot of salt in a brine, so it's going to dry it out, but that's not true. What it does is it actually equalizes it, and it brings all that flavor into the meat as it's sitting there in the brine. Okay, so and then then this would have. If you got this at home, like I said, it would be raw, but we would have cooking instructions for you, and we cook it to the right temperature. You cook it to the right temperature, let it rest, and slice it, okay? And right here what we have is wonderful, some nice just roasted vegetables, okay? Parsnips, carrots, and Brussels sprouts. A lot of times we'll add beets, we'll add turnips. And the great thing about roasted
Parsnips?
vegetables, yeah, go right ahead. The great thing about these vegetables is that there's a lot of sugar in them, okay? But it's a matter of figuring out how to get that sweetness out of them, all right? And so we treat them very simply, okay? A little oil, salt, pepper, maybe some fresh herbs, but then we put them flat in an oven, a smidgen of vinegar, and we roast them at 400 degrees, okay, for about maybe 10 to 12 minutes, okay? And that brings the sugars, out to the surface of them. It gets a light caramelization of sugar on it, and really makes a nice side dish for it. Okay.
And do you think root vegetables are finally getting the respect they deserve?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and part of that is the farm to table. I mean, you're here in New England. There's not much that you're going to get in January, February. I mean, aside from root vegetables, and it's great to see them getting the respect that they do deserve, because it's almost my favorite. It's one of my favorite things to actually cook. I mean, I really enjoy that flavor of a little bit of char on the outside,
right.
And you bring those sugars out, and there's a lot of sweetness to it.
Well, and it's interesting because growing up, Brussels sprouts were considered the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And yet, with the advent of grilling them, they're spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny. If you're gonna get, it's a very, one of the great things about root vegetables. It's it's an easy way actually to get maximum flavor from them. Okay, like I said, we treat them very simply. You're gonna get a little oil, salt, pepper, put them in a hot oven, and roast them. Okay, if you're gonna get something like, you take something else like broccoli. Okay, broccoli has a very complex flavor profile to it. If you blanch it, or you cook it very quickly, you eat it raw, it has one sort of a flavor profile. But if you take broccoli and you cook it and you make soup and you let it simmer for 2 to 3 hours, some of the components in it break down and they turn into sugars, and you get a little bit of the sweetness to it. But it takes several hours to do. All right, so root vegetables, it's a very easy, simple, fast way to get nice, sweet vegetables with a different flavor to them.
And where do you find all of this? You know, in the middle of November or December?
Yeah, sure. So we have different purveyors that we work with. We do have some. You know, and here's the thing too. You know, we have a wide array of clients that have a wide array of expectations. Okay, with a wide array of price points that they want to pay. So we have a wide array of purveyors that to help cater to that. We have some national purveyors, we have some local purveyors, and even some of the national purveyors are getting into catering to local stuff. They now have a conduit to local farms, so that when these local farms here, these wonderful farms in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, when they have stuff, they offer that to us, which is really great.
Right, and the beauty, of course, is that it's offered an economic lifeline to farmers who probably have gone through gyrations the likes we could never deal with, who have now found a home market for high quality vegetables, so that their gross per acre on these small farms is potentially brings them a profit. I mean, it's a labor of love. I've met enough of these folks to understand that, again, they're not getting rich.
Yeah,
it's a lifestyle, and it's an avocation.
Yeah, sure.
And if there's the beauty of a place like Rhode Island is we've got an entire economy here that recognizes their value. So now all of a sudden you've got this resurgence of these small micro farms, a few acres, and you can actually, maybe you still have to go to work during the day, but you're coming home and you're tending to.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are companies here, the Rhode Island Mushroom Company, that is. I mean, that's what they do. That's all they do is mushrooms. And that's what they. That's they're not a huge farm. They're not a big factory farm. They're not doing mushrooms and asparagus and this. I mean, that's what they do. And they have a they know what they do. They stick with it, and they do what they know how to do well, and they do it well. There's a lot of other stuff going on with this a company that's coming in. They're going to be building a huge urban greenhouse, which is another interesting thing, because I had dinner up in Maine a few years ago, and there was a salad, and it was one of these like kind of farm to table restaurants, and it was a caprese salad with fresh tomato, and I said, this is winter time, and where am I, and so the server explained to me that they had this greenhouse right down the street that was growing tomatoes all year round, as if it was, and so there are ways in which you can get tomatoes that's not going to be mealy and just and taste awful in January, and so there is a project going on in Providence now where they have they're going to be building a huge greenhouse, and they're going to be doing lettuces and things like that. So there is a lot going on in terms of being able to up the quality of and seasonality of food. So it's almost like you can get seasonal food out of season. You used to have to go to for strawberries. You go half the year you go to California, the other half Arizona. That you got to go to Australia. But they're going to be doing they're going to be doing some great foods locally. That not strawberries, but
No, it's and again the market here supports it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so so there's just a couple of things that we're going to be offering. We offer a whole, like I said, we offer a whole meal. And we also offer desserts on the menu as well. I mean, you go to our website, www.fireworkscatering. It's .net.
Right.
It's, someone took our .com and wanted to, so we got .net. But you
It's
go
a
to
beautiful site too, and
thank
it's
you.
very accessible. I mean, that's there are some gorgeous sites that are out there that you can't find your way through. And that's a natural segue to your other business I want to talk about, because you've taken, and I understand, now this is a national cooperative, or you've got this website now where folks who are doing the more corporate style lunches can literally just go online and bang out an order.
Yeah, sure. So, it's well, I think that a few things have kind of come together. Technology and also some sort of I don't want to call it globalization, but there are companies now that help local caterers. There's one called Easy Cater, okay, and I'm able to set up on my site an order situation where we have our menu. People can go online if they want, order exactly what they want. It goes through a couple of channels. We send an email, say it's confirmed, and you get your food the next day or next week or whatever it is that you want. And so that's a huge part of what we do. I call I don't mind saying it, but I call it like Panera style catering. Okay,
Right.
I mean we're doing we do salads, soups, sandwiches, desserts, fruit platters, things like that. Okay,
And it's very reasonably priced. So you're getting, quite honestly, and I'm going to say this because you're probably too bashful to, but quite honestly, you're getting better food, better servings from a local caterer for whom you'd be thrilled to have do your wedding.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Like kind of quality control without all the nonsense and the preciousness of going to one of these chain catering operations.
Yeah, sure. And so for us too, also, if there's something that we can't do, all right, I can cook almost anything. If somebody comes to me and says, we want Southeast Asian, or we want French, or we want Italian, I can do that. There are a couple of things though that I'm not very good at. All right, one of the things is baking, and the one thing we won't do is wedding cakes. There are professionals that do that. All right, but what I was getting at is that so for all of our sandwiches, we work with a bakery out on Cape called Pond d'Avignon, and we get all of our breads in fresh every day. Okay, it's not something that we can do. We can't handle.
Oh, breads are.
We can't handle that situation. So you know what? We find somebody who can, and then we work with them, and we partner with them, and we're able to put together a great product based on what they offer, what we offer, and get it to the client, get it to
You take something as straightforward as what a caprese sandwich would be, and the four principal ingredients. It seems simple enough, but bread. Now my wife's French, so I've been to patisseries and whatever in France, and I'll mention their name. The folks over on Hope Street, Seven Stars, for example, do a spectacular. We've always had this great tradition of somehow in Providence having great bread makers, and I'm talking about, you've got the Portuguese bakeries who do wonderful work. You got these great Italian bakeries, but you also got, astonishingly enough, in the middle of Rhode Island, far away from France, we've had this tradition of having great baguettes. And the Frenchie, we love when you call them come over, and they're astonished.
Yeah.
And the folks at Seven Stars do a wonderful baguette.
Sure.
And it's when you look at a sandwich like a caprese, I mean, everything stands out. everything's got to be perfect.
Yeah, you can't fake it, you know, and that's why like I said, there are certain things that we won't offer at certain times of the year because we just can't. You know, if you can't get a good tomato in January, February, you know. So when we do change our menus, we take that in consideration. People still want a caprese. So I tell people a lot of times too with our menus is we'll do familiar with a twist. Okay. So look, if you want caprese, you really want to have a caprese salad at whatever your meal is in January, February, March, that's great. We'll do that for you. But here's what we're going to do, okay? We're not going to serve you a raw tomato, all right? Because you're going to be unhappy. Your guests are going to be unhappy. We'll take tomatoes, all right, that are maybe not the best in season. But you know what? We'll take them, we season them, a little oil, salt, pepper. We put them in an oven and slow cook them, okay? And you know what we do? And you know what that does? That takes the flavor. It concentrates the flavor, and it improves the flavor of the tomato. Okay, so it's not going to be a beautiful globe tomato slice. All right, but you know what?
That's going to love it.
Yeah, you know, and so that takes sometimes it takes some cajoling or teaching or explaining to people on how to do it, you know. And I think that once they realize too sometimes that, you know, I'm taking the time to explain to them why they don't want this but they want this, and sometimes it will even be more economical for them to do something, you know, because I mean if they really want the best tomato in the world in March, fine, I can source it, okay, right. But you're talking, you know, what are you willing to pay for it? All right, or do you trust me as a chef, someone who knows about food and that will, you know, I'm not going to serve you something that's not good. You know, do you trust me? And that's kind of what it comes down to sometimes.
It is a relationship business, particularly for people who repeatedly cater, who run events.
Yeah.
And you know, and event planners have become such a major part of the city because of its. Well, look at the skyline: restaurants, hotels, a convention center. You know, trying to fire up that business. So we bring in people, and when again, the common refrain when people come to Providence from parts elsewhere, even from New York City, they are astonished. There are people coming into the city now on foodie tours who have a list of places. I've met them. They have a list of places that they've been told to go to. PBD Donut, you know, Coffee Exchange. You know, I mean, just they're literally on a hunt. You know, I ran through folks on a Sunday once, and you could tell they were literally ready to pass out. Just and they looked at it. I said, "Oh, yeah, I live here."
Yeah.
They're like, you know,
well, it's an experience. It would be like, I mean, you know, I've taken a vacation out to Napa Valley, all right, and you know, and my wife, God bless her, I mean, she would, you know, she tolerates me, and you know, we did a food and wine tour out in Napa Valley for 7 days, and we went to Thomas Keller's restaurant, we went to all the other great, you know, we went to these Mondavi, we went to Opus, and you know, and
my wife and I honeymooned in Napa.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And one of the great, and you can appreciate this, one of the great mistakes people make when they go out to San Francisco, and San Francisco is a beautiful city, but it's ultimately a West Coast version of Boston today. A great place to spend 2 or 3 days. The key to California is spending overnights in either Sonoma or Napa, or you know, or the Russian River. I mean, just spending the overnights, because there's something about 7 or 8 o'clock at night when the tourist bus leave, and you're there. And you're, now I'm going to go down, and I bought that bottle of reserve at, you know, fill in the blanks, you know, and I'm going to watch the sundown, and then wake up the next morning. There are bed and breakfasts in the middle of vineyards, and you know, it's the same kind of approach that we would take to people, you know, coming here to Rhode Island.
Yeah, sure. You know, I mean, the equivalent to that might be, you know, where people are coming out this way and they go down to Newport, all right, and that you've got Newport Vineyards, you know, and that's one of the things that we have a great micro vineyards, micro distilleries, micro breweries. And down along down in Newport, I mean, you've got, like I said, you've got a couple of great vineyards. You can do that. You can go there for 2-3 days, eat at some of the best restaurants in the world, drink some of the best wine, and you know, and that's it. It's almost like, you know, get yourself into a food coma and you know, and enjoy it. You know.
Well, you only got a couple more minutes left. We would be remiss if we didn't discuss the dreaded politics for at least a minute or two. The focus of tonight has really all been about food, the spirit of your business.
Yeah.
If you could say one thing to the Solons who run Providence, because it's my contention that we've got this golden goose here. This city is incredible. Yet it's becoming a challenge. It's been a challenge, but the difficulties and the challenges of running a business in this city have got to be extreme. And you, to your credit, a lot of your employees are from here. You're here. Your business is here. Your kitchen is here. Your commissary. You, to your credit, and again, I look at the Go Local people here who have invested.
Yeah.
When I meet people like yourself who are, just talking about what a great place Providence is, but literally investing everything in the city, what would you say if there was one thing you could change or one thing you could say to them about someone who runs a sophisticated business in a city that prides itself, quite frankly, makes its bones on the presence of businesses like yours? It is our signature calling card in Providence that we are a food destination. What would you say to someone like a Mayor Lorza or the City Council? And I'm going to have one more piece of turkey.
Yeah, go right ahead. I mean, it's funny because I talked to, I've been active in politics, and to some people enjoy it and some people don't. But I will say this to a lot of people that maybe disagree with me on politics that don't live in Rhode Island, and I try to explain to them that when I'm complaining about the tax rates, okay, I try to explain to them it's not always. First of all, we are one of the most taxed states and cities in the country, but it's not even always about that. It's almost about return on investment. Okay, so. When I complain about the amount of taxes that we pay, it's because I don't feel that we're getting the return on the investment for our taxes that maybe other places are. Okay, and a very simple thing that I've said this to my city council person. I have two vehicles that we use. They're not great big huge vans. They're little Transit Connects, right? And I have explained to them that after it takes 10 years. But in 10 years, I pay in taxes the price of those vehicles. That goes directly to the city, all right? So I'm paying for those vehicles twice if I have a 10-year life out of them.
Right.
I look at what's going on here with the 195 land, and we really have an opportunity of a lifetime with the movement of I-95. We've got all this wonderful land, and I know that there's somebody trying to build some apartments, a tower or whatever, and and it's been trying to do it for 3 years. Not a lot of cities get this opportunity with pretty much free open land in the center of your city, and it's almost they can't get out of their way, and the people that they brought in some great companies, but they're all working with universities and nonprofits, and that's not helping our tax base at all. I also would say to them that that really is it's return on investment for our taxes, and that's what really. I don't want to complain just about high taxes, all right? As much as I hate them or whatever, but because you're not, I find that when you complain just about taxes, or when I complain just about taxes, people just say, well, you got to pay taxes. That's death and taxes, blah blah blah, whatever. Okay, but you know what? But when you start putting it in terms of return on investment, for instance, we pay, if we're one of the top 10 cities or states spending on education, but we're in the bottom 5 in terms of outcome. Well, there's a return on investment issue there. Why are we spending here, and why are we getting these results down here? And that's really what it is. There's a lot of so I don't try to complain just about taxes because people, they tend to glaze over, okay, whatever. But so it's a return on investment is what I tell people, and I would like to see this city, this state, get a much better return on investment for the taxes that we pay.
No, absolutely. I've been to your spot. You, again, have invested in one of the, and it's a nice neighborhood, but it's a challenged part of the city. The infrastructure is tough. They haven't done a very good job. You're right down on Allens Avenue, where you've got a facility in your office and everything else like that. And again, you're bringing in the importance of a business like yours. Step away from the food angle for just a second. You're bringing in expensive physical assets. You're performing, in a sense, free job training for a whole lot of young people who've come through your facility. Some have stayed in food. Others have just used it to finance other education.
Sure.
But you're providing, as an entrepreneur, a level of services that are truly critical and noble at the same time. And that's why we have to continue to develop an innovation culture here, so that folks like you can afford to continue to invest in your business.
Sure, and and a lot of times we will hear from people. Well, when's the business community going to step up? And I'll tell you, we already step up. I mean, whether we're bringing in young people that we're mentoring, whether we're donating to. I mean, I can't tell you that. I mean, a day doesn't go by that I don't get a phone call from someone who's looking to have ask us to help them with a fundraiser. Okay, I mean, there are companies now. There are some of the larger companies, some larger restaurant chains here, and they on their website. It's all automated. I mean, they get so many of them that it's an automated system where if you're looking for a donation from X restaurant, you go to their website and you put it. I mean, so we're constantly being asked to step up. We're constantly and the chef community, the cook community. I mean, we really are tight knit and one of the most altruistic group. And the reason we do it because we want to, not because we have to, and we just that's part of what we do. We're part of the service industry. We kind of get service, all right, hospitality. It's it's hard work, but that's what we get. We get it's what we do. So it's sort of ingrained in us, and we don't want to be taken for granted. We sometimes we might just want a little bit. We're not looking for extra help. We just don't want we don't want the boot on our neck all the time.
Right, and when you look at some of the taxes here, the hospitality taxes, the sales tax, essentially, if you hold an event in this city, it's the layers of taxation on the event. A few years ago, one of the salons, I guess as I always refer to them, in the state government said, well, it's a cost of a price of pizza. There's additional extra tax that they wanted to put on. And when you're looking at an event like yours, where you've got, labor charges, you've got gratuities on top of that, and then you've got the taxes on top of that. It makes it's taking money, discretionary money, out of your budget that you're being presented with by the potential client, and instead it's going to the government.
Yeah. I mean,
it comes right out of. It never makes it into your pocket. That's
right.
The
No,
problem.
we're just a conduit. I mean, and one of the things too is even with Rhode Island is that there's a 7% sales tax, and then on top of that there's a 1% meals tax.
Right.
So if you want us to cater your event, it's going to be 7% for the sales and 1% for the meals tax. And the meals tax, so we have to figure out who does that go to? That goes to the city in which we're catering in. All right. So it's layer upon layer upon layer on tax upon tax. I talked about the vehicle tax. I mean, thank God that they've reduced that a little bit. But there is just layers of tax upon tax, and it's nickels and dimes. There's licenses, there's fees.
Right.
It's kind of and it is burdensome. I don't
And here's my frustration, whether it be you or one of the several other folks who have a significant catering presence in the state. Your industry on multiple levels should be the sweet spot of our economy, and we should, for lack of a better term, cater to you, because ultimately your business performs it takes and keeps in town, potentially JWU graduates, people like that, your industry. Number two, you're acting as a mentor and employer for young people who may not have job skills and who, quite frankly, the education environment in this state is terrible at providing. You're, again, investing in physical assets, very often from local sources. Your business, and then on top of that, the presence of your business has become the marquee for the marketing efforts for the city itself.
Sure, and I get what you're saying, but I'm gonna throw a little bit of a wrench into what you just said. And we're not looking. Sure, that may all be true, but I don't think that as a specific industry, we should have a specific taxation rate just for us because of whatever. All right, things should be a lot more equal across the board.
Well,
okay, and we're getting a little bit into the weeds or whatever. But I don't want people to think we're not looking for tax breaks.
I have never seen a sense of entitlement from your industry at all. I think it's a recognition that you want to be treated fairly.
Yeah, and when we hear of companies getting tax breaks to come into the city, and getting these or what about us? We're here.
Yeah.
We've been the lifeblood. We've been here for 10 years, 5 years, and sure, there are certain programs that you can, but they're not the easiest. They're not all they're cracked up to be. When and for somebody like me, who's more libertarian-minded. The last thing I want to do is take money from the government. I really don't. That's, you know what I mean. I don't want
Well,
that. And so
a good friend of mine, John Fennessy, puts it very, very well when he talks about that the notion of tax credits and special tax deductions is essentially an admission of the flawed nature of taxation as we conduct it in this state alone.
Well, sure. If you have to give somebody, if someone is looking at Providence and they say, hey, we'd like to go there, but we can't do it financially unless we get a tax break. If the city capitulates, the city is absolutely, they are admitting that this person who wants to come in and invest X amount of dollars, but they can't make it work financially unless they get a tax break. And that right there is an admission that the burden is too high. The burden is much too high on not just people coming into the city, but the people that are here now.
Right.
And that's really, you're right, it's an admission that it should be lowered across the board.
And I think we always have to remember that tax policy, government policies, whatever policies that we conjure up need to be suited to the people who are here already, who have given, in some cases, generations, who have given literally blood to build businesses here, as opposed to those people who would like to come here. We need to remember that always, and I think we've kind of lost sight of that here in the state.
Absolutely, I agree. I definitely agree.
So how can folks find you again on the web?
Yeah, www.fireworkscatering.net. All right. We're also on we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Just look for Fireworks Catering, and our site is actually the great thing. One of the great things about our website too is that there's a contact page, and that brings you to an email, and that actually goes right to me. So every email that comes through, I may send it off to our catering manager or what, but it comes through me first. So I see every email that comes in through the website. So I'm the first point of contact for any client that's looking to get a hold of us through our website. And people have seen our vans around, our transit connects around the city. We have a 831-9221 if you want to call us by phone. But that's how you get a hold of us. I mean, and also we're at a lot of different events throughout the city. I mean, on 4th of July, we help out the city down at India Point Park. We partner with Waterfire, okay? And we are at every single full Waterfire lighting. Okay, we don't work with them with the small ones, but every full lighting we are there. We work with them on one of their major sponsor tents, and we also have a smaller tent where we're selling food. It's different, and it's different with every single Waterfire. I mean, so now it's going to be a little bit chilly. We're actually going to be down at Waterfire tomorrow night, and it's going to be a little chilly. So we've got some Mexican hot chocolate. We've got spiced apple cider. We've got some chili. We're going to have hot ham and Swiss croissant sandwiches. We'll have some sweets and pastries and stuff too. So for sale for everybody. So we're very accessible throughout the city. We're at all sorts of events.
What block are you going to be on tomorrow?
We are at Market Square.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, we're going to be at Market Square, right across the street from the RISD Museum.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, this was a long time in coming, but thank you so much for an hour. You were wondering what we could talk about.
Yeah.
It's been an hour and 30 minutes.
Hey, not bad, huh?
All right. And I have a feeling you and I could go on for a couple hours.
Yeah, we could.
But
yeah.
listen, a heartfelt congratulations on everything you've accomplished. Again, businesses like yours are what make this great city tick. Sometimes despite the adversities and the challenges we face. So I want to end clearly on a positive note.
Yeah.
We are blessed in this city to have entrepreneurs who are willing to literally risk it all to bring their creation, their love, their artistry on an intense level like this. And quite frankly, it's folks like you that really make this city hum. So congratulations, and I look forward to talking to you in the future, Ted. I'd love to have you on anytime you've got something going on.
Hey, well, I'm going to bring food, so
You notice I've been kind of
fair enough.
Just leave that. Congratulations.
Right.
Thank you again.
Pat, again, thank you very much.
We're going to take a quick break right now. We are the Coalition Loud and Proud, Outrage Porn Free, Civilly Disobedient Media, broadcasting live at the Worldwide Coalition Media Headquarters here at the Go Local Live Broadcast Center, deep in the heart of the city we love. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, and of course CoalitionRadio.us, the mothership. As a favor, if you could like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, or Follow us on YouTube or whatever you have a moment to do. We'd be grateful because, as always, independent media is the mother's milk of organizations like this.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
All right.